Well, all right. Today we're going to review a review. I was reading the news the other day and this article came up saying 10 essential emergency tools every home must have. So let's review the review. Now, first, a big thanks because to whoever wrote the likes and dislikes, um, I guess even if it was artificial intelligence, I questionable how much real intelligence went into it because it just seemed so funny and so interesting the way it was written. So thanks. I was laughing quite a while, um, even after I read this. If it was a sarcastic style, then well done, because it was very very funny. I really enjoyed it. So first, I'll get out of the way. I did not review the gear. This is a review of the review. It's just as I read this review, I was thinking about what they were talking about and what they were saying about the gear. And so that's what I'm reviewing. It's just more the thought process behind it, not the actual gear itself. So I'm going to comment on some of the categories that the gear was in, provide a few options that I would have potentially gone to instead of this gear. Again, I didn't review the gear. Some of it does look pretty cool um, for gear. But gear, just remember, gear enhances skills or simplifies tasks to make them more efficient and effective. They're not the goal in and of themselves. You should always be focusing on your skills, your knowledge, your training. Focus on that first because the gear will be pretty much useless without that. And as we all know, gear breaks, or you lose gear, or gear is taken. So you shouldn't focus on the gear. I love gear myself, but don't focus on that. So the first one they talked about was the an Olight Baton 4. So it was pretty cool. It was a flashlight that was in its own charging case. So you could take the little flashlight out of the charging case, and it looked like the case could then be used to recharge the flashlight. And just like your ear pod things that you put in your ears, they recharge in the case. So it said what we liked: one-handed operation directly from the charging case. 5,000 milliamps provides multiple charges or recharges. What we didn't like: premium pricing compared to basic. Well, that makes sense, right? If it's a premium flashlight, you're going to pay more than a basic flashlight. Large footprint due to the charging case. Again, if you want a charging case, it's going to be bigger than the actual flashlight. Um, this one was funny too. It said underneath, most flashlights are essentially expensive paperweights until the moment you desperately need them. And this flashlight flips that equation. So does this mean it's an expensive paperweight when you actually need it? Um, so I guess if some of the dislikes are that it's too big with the charging case, well, don't get this one then, or take it out of the case. Keep the case in your car, or your pack, and keep the flashlight on your person if you want. Now, if this case, again, I didn't review it, but if this case could charge things like your cell phone, or like those little charging battery banks you get, that would be cool. That would make it a little bit more multi-purpose. Again, we should look at multi-purpose things when we're looking at gear. Flashlight options: I always prefer a headlamp. Um, Now, like for multi-purpose, again, there's phones in our sorry, flashlights in our phones, but I like headlamps because then it's hands-free, and quite often you're going to be needing your hands, and so you're going to have hands-free. Rechargeable options, there's lots of those with pretty good life with the LED. You could pair it with other solar recharging options, and you should look for a red light option so it doesn't destroy your night vision. Now, not too many of them do this, but in my opinion, the red light should be the first light that comes on. When you first click on that headlamp, or if you have a red light flashlight, the red light should be the first option. Quite often it's the last one. You click it on and it defaults to bright setting. Well, there goes your night vision and any of your, secrecy or stealth that you're trying to um, keep. So if you can get one that starts on the red light, that's best. Then they went into an Everlight Essential Survival First Aid Kit. They said they liked the 250 supplies that were packaged. MOLLE compatible, so I mean you can attach it to other gear. What they disliked: requires medical knowledge for effective use. Well, that's a shocker. And again, it goes back to what we said at the start. You need the knowledge. It's just such a hilarious thing to say, though, that, oh, well, the only problem with one thing we don't like about the first aid kit is you have to know what you're doing with it. They could say that about any gear. Some supplies have expiration dates and require replacement. Sure. All sorts of things have expiration dates. First aid options, again, just like one of their dislikes, you have to have the knowledge. I would say build your own. Make it small, make it practical. Even though, I've got medical training. I've got lots of different first aid equipment, supplies, gear. And the things I use the most, honestly, Band-Aids, tweezers, a needle. And I mean, you should throw some gloves in there, but it's cheaper to build it yourself. Things that you know you're going to need and use a lot. Tourniquets, sure, you might need one of those life or death situation. So it's good to have one, but if you're going to start, don't spend a pile of money on a kit. And it's better to have a box of Band-Aids and have Band-Aids at the ready. Tweezers. Now, I like the ones in the picture. I've got a pair like that has a magnifying glass integrated into it. And so it's super, super helpful. And then I paired that usually with a needle to dig splinters out. Honestly, that, have some duct tape. Again, you can use duct tape for all kinds of things, but you can use it as a bandage as well to cover a dressing. So keep it simple, keep it cheap, personalize it to yourself. A lot of those 250 items in there, unless they're counting individual Band-Aids, like 20 Band-Aids counts as 20 items, which they're probably doing. You're not going to use all that stuff. Keep it simple, have the knowledge. I mean, if you need splints, you can use a magazine, you can use boards, sticks, there's all kinds of things. If you have the knowledge, you don't need all the gear. Portable fire pit. This one, now you should actually, I recommend reading the whole article because it talks more just about the likes and dislikes. But so warp resistant construction maintains integrity under heat. Well, that's probably good for a fire pit. Multiple cooking methods with removable trivets. Okay, well, that's good, I guess. It means you can just expand for different size of pots. They disliked that it requires wood or a fuel source for operation. Again, that's a genius dislike. We've got a stove, but it requires fuel. Well, again, that goes back to knowledge. Who'd have thought that your stove required fuel? What a ridiculous dislike. Assembly required before use. Yeah, that sucks. If you want an ultra compact, light, portable kind of stove, you gotta sometimes put them together. Silly, but funny dislikes. Options. So I went with the same kind of idea. This one is from Walmart. It's just a quick little put together, put the wood in there, put your pot on top type of stove. So I can't recall how much that other option cost, but there's lots of little options like this that have pellets. Anything that can actually feed wood into it is better because you will run out of whatever fuel source came with it. Again, this does require fuel, like wood. LifeStraw personal water filter. So water filtration is important because water is one of those essential things that we need. I do have a number of LifeStraws that I have in my various kits. I've got different filters as well. They said what they like: no shelf life or expiration date. First, filters 1,000 gallons of water in a package. That's great. What they dislike: direct drinking limits water collection for later use. Yeah, with this model it does, unless you're taking a tug on it and then spitting that water into a container, which if it's just for you, sure. Or, if you're swapping spit with somebody anyways, you could do that as well. So that's the, one drawback of this particular one. You could get a pump filter that you could then, some of those aren't much bigger than the LifeStraw, and then you could put water into a different container. Doesn't remove chemical contaminants or viruses. Yeah, each filter does different things, so kind of look for what you're after. So there's different options. There are some pump models. Again, some are very small. There's purification tabs and droplets. You can get integrated filters into your water bottles. Some are gravity fed, so you put basically a bag of river or lake water, well water up, elevate it, and then it kind of just gravity feeds through the filter into another container. Different options. RetroWave 7-in-1 radio. This one was cool. They always recommend having a means to get information, so get communications without radio. What they liked, multiple power sources. So it had solar and hand crank. That's awesome. Yeah, if you have one that uses batteries, especially if they're rechargeable batteries, and has a solar panel, has a crank, those are great. 7 functions in a single attractive device. It does look pretty cool. I like the retro look. It has a flashlight. You can charge other devices from it. That's great. What they dislike, retro design may not appeal to everyone. True. You know, you could look at the color options. That may not appeal to everyone either. Some people like the retro. I look at functionality more than the actual look. I personally like the look of the retro design. Hand crank charging requires physical effort. Gosh, again, there's another one of those. Are you serious when you write this? That cranking requires physical exertion and effort. Wow. That is a big dislike. Radio options, there's lots out there. There's lots of different styles and kinds. Some of them have alarms on them. Some of them have shortwave that you can receive. Most have a flashlight. If you can get a crank, solar, if it's got USB ports, radio with it. Look at the functions that you need, right? Can you charge your phone off it? Again, that's just a multiple thing. It's got a flashlight in it. Again, that's another flashlight if you need that. So it's got an alarm so you can make some noise if you're either too weak to call for help or to scare off animals or attract attention. So there's some different options. Look for multifunctionality. Now this I'm going to zip through pretty quickly, just to look at the some of the funny bits. So this was I don't know how you pronounce it, Kuo2, Kuo2. It's basically a high-tech multi-purpose carabiner. So it's got 7-in-1. So apparently the inlaid copper is one of the features. It's got the quick release. It's got some wrenches, screwdriver bit stuff, glass breaker, kind of a pointed end to it. They like the machined titanium construction, 7 functions integrated into a compact form. That's good. They dislike that the pointed design may snag on clothing or gear. Well, that's important to look at. You don't want stuff that's going to get caught on everything. And premium materials resulted in a higher cost. So they liked the premium materials and they disliked the cost to pay for it. Again, sometimes you get what you pay for. I want to jump right through because the next one was also basically a multi-tool. The Leatherman Skeletool RX. Again, I haven't reviewed this, but I love Leatherman. What they like, purpose-built for emergency responder needs. Kind of a weak like, but sure, purpose-built for that. Carbide glass breaker for rescue access. Great, another thing, I guess. Multiple functions. What we dislike, multiple tool selection compared to full-size multi-tools. Yeah, if you want compact, you're going to sacrifice some of the tools. You want all the bells and whistles, literally, you have to get a bigger one. The serrated blade requires special sharpening techniques. Well, they take longer to dull, but yeah, sometimes different things require different sharpening. Again, back to the knowledge. So multi-tool options, there's a plethora of them. There's a whole bunch from Leatherman, Gerber, Swiss Army, SOG, like all kinds of them. Look for a high quality product. You want something that's durable and going to last. Look for the different functions or tools that you normally use, and size. There's all shapes and sizes. You can literally have one on you at all times, and it doesn't really, or in your purse, your bag, whatever, it doesn't take up much space. The Goal Zero Nomad 20, I guess. What we like, the renewable. So this is basically a foldable solar panel you put out to charge up. Looks like, I think, a battery bank to then charge your devices. The renewable energy source works indefinitely with sunlight. Well, you don't say that the solar panel needs sunlight to work. Built-in kickstand optimizes the angle. I guess if it's adjustable, sure, that's great. What they dislike, charging speed depends on weather conditions and requires daytime sunlight for power generation. Again, that's mind-numbingly shocking. Well, what about the nighttime sunlight? Does that not power it? If it's raining, it's going to have different charging speeds. The dislikes, again, are funny, bordering on useless. Charging options. Look for multi-purpose. So now some of them might have a light integrated into them. Can you charge things directly from them? Can they float, etc.? All kinds of different things you might not think of. I like these ones. I've got the one with the curled orange strap here. I've got that one myself. I've got a few of the bottom options. I do have some foldable solar panels as well for charging, but some are very convenient. You can hang them on a strap, a tent, put them around an object and secure them. You can charge your phone or other devices right off of them, and they have LED lights. Some of them you just inflate, so it casts kind of a diffuse light and it floats. So different options to look at. Blackout beam tactical flashlight, yet another flashlight. In their 10 essential things, let's have another flashlight. What they liked, 0.2-second response time. Well, I haven't tested a lot of flashlights, but most of them don't have a huge delay from the time I push the button to the time the light actually comes on. And it's waterproof, that's great. What they dislike, high brightness may affect your night vision. Shocking that the flashlight might impact your night vision unless it has a red lens or a red filter. Premium pricing reflects tactical grade construction. So once again, their dislike is that it's made very, very well, and it is priced to reflect that. 72. So this is a take on a 72-hour kit. Lots of things in it. So it's what they liked, expert curated tools from survival professionals. So are the tool selections from the professionals, or are the tools themselves from the professionals? And who are these experts? You know what I heard one time, an expert is just a spurt, as in a bit of water, and X, so a drip under pressure. Backpack doubles as a flotation device for water emergencies. So here's your backpack. It's basically like the waterproof bags that you get for kayaking and things like that. So that's cool to integrate something into that. So you've got flotation. I can get behind that. That's good. Got a spot for a water bottle. That's great. What they dislike, single person capacity, limits family preparedness. Yeah, it's a 72-hour kit for one person. That is for a single person. You either get one for each person in your family or you need a bigger bag. Premium pricing reflects professional. Again, they're complaining that it's high quality and more expensive than the low quality stuff. Ridiculous. And professional grade. Does that mean that people who are professionals, aka they get paid for doing something, it's good for them? I want the everyday person kind of grade. So yeah, it's got a bunch of things in it. Basic first aid stuff. It's got a multi-tool. It's got flashlight. It's got cordage, masks. You know, it's got the radio, goggles, gloves, a toque, things like that. 72-hour kit options. I would say build your own. You'll get more knowledge and more value out of going through the exercise of building your own, even if it's not as good as the one you could buy. You could buy one too, but you'll get far more value out of building your own. These are pictures of a few of the kits that I have. Again, you can see my life straw there, some granola bars, my gloves, got cordage, means to start a fire. That's a collapsible water bottle in the top left. The other one I've got top right, magnifying glass, antiseptic, soap, a Leatherman, headlamp, candle, little bivy sack, my survival tin. Bottom picture, my little first aid kit, some bear spray, a knife, a water bottle with duct tape wrapped around it. Build your own. Be way cheaper. You'll get far more out of it. Focus on multi-function capabilities. So cutting, combustion, some sort of cover. You know, is it a tarp? I like throwing garbage bags in all my kits. They don't take up much space. You could use them for flotation. You can store things in them. You could carry water in them if you had to. Your sleeping pads, you could fill them with leaves to sleep on to keep you off the ground. You could cut holes in it for a poncho. All kinds of things you can use a garbage bag for. A container of some sort, again, garbage bag can cover for that. Cordage to tie things with. Candling, which is light, basically. Cargo tape. Yeah, it's always good to have some tape. It doesn't take up much space. Wrap it around stuff. Wrap it around your survival tin. Wrap it around your water bottle. I've got some wrapped around my lighter. Canvas needle. So a needle for repairs and first aid. What I liked about this review, it's good that being prepared is getting more attention. The intent of the items are all valid. I liked that the review was hilarious. Redundancies were built in. Several items had light, fire starters, multi-tools, things like that. What I dislike, the choices are not the best. Sure, it's good to get what you pay for. I haven't tested them, but um, I'd rather have something. If I don't have the budget for it, I'd rather get some basic stuff in place. I do like high quality stuff, but you could have just got item number 10, that 72-hour kit. It had pretty much everything else that you needed. So you don't need all 10 of those essentials, especially because a lot of them were flashlights. This focuses on gear. It doesn't focus on the planning, the knowledge, and the skills. It actually said knowledge was, something they didn't like, that you had to have knowledge to use the stuff. I would think it's too expensive for this kind of stuff. Too much focus on electricity, the lights, the chargers, things like that. You had at least 6 flashlights. Now that's great to have redundancy, but if you had bought that 72-hour kit that they talked about in here, that would have had your radio, your multi-tool, your flashlight. It covered off all those things. So again, it's hilarious. I would recommend anyone read that article. Get prepared, get started, do it yourself, start small, build up.